Hello, everybody. Welcome to the UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBulsi. I'm joined by Dane Young and the Hall of Famer himself, former Georgia head coach Jim Donnan. This is UGA Sports Live, where we talk football for a little while and we answer your questions. So if you are watching us on YouTube, go ahead and get your questions into the chat there, and we will get to them as we go. We appreciate it. And also, while you're there, hit that subscribe button and hit the notifications button so that it pops up on your timeline when we go live. It would be a wise idea, and it means a lot to us. We do the show for free. Big shout out to our sponsors, Athens Ford, Your Pie. I'm wearing the Your Pie shirt today. Free clothes are always good. Dead Soxy, speaking of free clothes, we appreciate them, our newest sponsor. And of course, Academia Brewing Company. We need to start doing more shows out of Academia Brewing Company because they have such good food and good beer. So we'll hit them up. Coach, I did a couple stories at UGASports.com talking about the state of the offense, state of the defense after spring practice, fall, summer workouts, fall camp, couple scrimmages. I think if the members at UGASports.com, the readers over there, have a good idea what's going on with the team, we'll touch on that and answer people's questions. But I need to come to you because I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what's going on with the SEC and ESPN versus the rest of college football. I'm seeing a lot of talk about the alliance that's supposed to be announced today. And I admit I've not been keeping up with it. I've been focused on Georgia football, and I can't walk and chew gum. You know that. So can you kind of give us a breakdown of what the hell's going on?
Yeah, from what I understand and talking to some people around the country here over the last day or so, what we're going to see is the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC are going to form an alliance where they work together in scheduling, where they can have the ability to schedule, at least two non-conference games a year among those three conferences, and at the same time work together. Not so much on the TV packaging, although that's really big, but the streaming is where the money is. Everybody's talking about, the potential for streaming. And at this point, when you look at the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, SEC and ESPN pretty much got locked up as far as, a lot of different any way you look at it, the big games and the scheduling. But if you look at these three conferences out of the 16 major markets in the country, of which, everybody knows I can't go down 1 through 16, but those three conferences will have 12 of those in their footprint. And when you look at the ability to go from east to west, north to south, all around the country, that certainly enhances their programming situation. From our standpoint, Dallas would be one of the four that the SEC would be really big in, Atlanta. But there's no question that they're a little bit worried about the SEC getting everything under their control, and they got to find some way to work out something in this playoff situation, because up until 2026, ESPN has all the contracts for the playoffs, which is set for 4 right now, but everybody's talking about 12. So in a capsule here, when they talked about the playoffs, going to 12, some of the Big 12 Big 12 is out of the picture right now. Some of the Big 10, Pac-12, and ACC really weren't involved in that talking about how to do it. So they're trying to either postpone it or work on the fact that, they're not going to just say, hey, we're going to let the SEC get 4 teams in there right off the bat. We're going to have such a strong alliance with our scheduling and all that we'll have the ability to, have higher ranked teams. So we'll see how that works. But supposedly today at 2:00, that's what you're going to hear from this press conference they're having. I hope I was able to get it across there, but they're sold. They're sold at the SEC and Texas and Oklahoma because any way you look at it, they got a really big TV package right now.
Dane,
Coach,
you follow the news. Tell me what the hell's going on.
well, I mean, I think when Coach said that streaming was at the forefront of all their minds, to me, that tells you how fast the page is turning, because it was more about TV contracts, which, yes, there was an element of streaming in there, but we're jumping straight ahead to the point where streaming is going to be everything. That's going to be the forefront of it. And the reason is because you don't have to share that money with the providers if you're your own provider. And so the media landscape is just moving so quickly in that regard. And I still think, Amazon has flirted with the NFL with Thursday Night Football for years. This is not always just going to be your traditional NBC, Fox, Disney, whatever, maybe still Disney, but whenever Apple and Google and Amazon want to get in this game, that's when the money really surges, because that's the tech money right now. And I promise you, at some point, the SEC is going to want a piece of that too.
No, you're right. I look back at how things have changed for us, for what we do. You, me, and Coach Donnan have a watch-along show where we have 2 cameras set on the 3 of us, and we are watching the game on the big screen at Coach Donnan's house. And we have people that are watching the game on their TV, and then on their laptop, cell phone, iPad, whatever, they have us. And it's us doing, we're doing now. We're usually about 15 seconds behind, 10 in that range. But you pause your TV for 10 seconds, then we're right there with you, and you're watching the game with us. At the Peach Bowl last year, we had 29,000 people watching the game with us in this big community. They're sending in questions. We're calling them out. We're hitting up Coach in real time, who's calling plays in real time or what's going to happen. He says he doesn't, but we've seen him do like 7 plays in a row. So he knows what's going to, he is calling the things. But think about it, 29,000 people watching us at the same time they're watching the show. Makes me nervous, but point being, and we're going to do that again this year. Shout out to Athens Ford. They are also sponsoring it this year. So really, really appreciate the folks at Athens Ford for doing that. They sponsor the watch along. It means a lot to us. And Leon Farmer as well. It's very, very, very big deal. But to have, and what are we going to do the commercial breaks? We're going to show Athens Ford commercials. We're going to talk about Bud Light seltzers, because
you're going to drink Bud Light seltzers.
I'm going to get drunk on Bud Light seltzer. Damn right. But the point being, the way the second screen experience is huge, and the streaming, I know a lot of people, they don't have cable or direct TV or anything like that. They watch everything on YouTube and stuff. Same point being is it's getting tougher and tougher. But that's where you're right. That's where the money is. And I think, Coach, you nailed it. They weren't in that whole, it did feel like the SEC and ESPN and everybody's running the whole college football playoff thing, the teams jumping. And if you're the ACC, you're like, damn it, we're a conference too. The Pac-12 is like, I know we're on West Coast time, but we want some attention. So, Coach, I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I would add this to the when the ACC signed their last TV deal that they were locked up to 2036. So realistically, if anybody would like to think that they could get Clemson in the SEC or North Carolina in the Big Ten or anything like that, then they're going to have to pay a humongous amount of money to get out of that. For instance, when Maryland got out of the ACC and went to the Big Ten, they were supposed to pay $51 million. That was like, 10 years ago, but they negotiated down to $31 million. And the same thing's true with Oklahoma and Texas. They're supposed to pay like $70 million because their rights are through 2025. So that's going to be a negotiated figure down so they can play in 2024, 2023. And some people are saying 2022, which would be unreal if all of a sudden you had those guys playing in our conference. And as far as conference scheduling, the one thing
what are you hearing?
The one thing that I've heard, I like to say an answer, but I don't like to be categorized as what is you're hearing, because when you say something like that, it's a negatory people out there. But that's really good. I think that's unbelievable what some of the things you break And I look forward to reading that once in a while.
We got another one coming here at the end of the show that people aren't going to be too happy about.
Well, that's it. For people that understand, when Roddy posts on the Dogman at UGASports.com, what we are hearing, the panic meters go off because most of the time it's not news that people want to hear. Although on occasion you have said what we're hearing, parentheses, good news.
There has been good news. Y'all make me feel bad.
So if you would just bear with me here.
Yeah.
If that's Oklahoma and Texas come in, and then we have these 16 team conference, and what I understand they're going to do is have 4 pods, of which there are 4 teams in each pod. Ours would probably be Florida, South Carolina, us, Kentucky, or us, more than likely that. And then, so you have a built-in 3 games every year that you're going to play, and they're going to go to a 9-game schedule. So they're going to add one other. So let's just pretend that the other pods are, Oklahoma, whatever they might be, but you would play as Georgia. We're just going to say we're Georgia. We will play everybody in another pod one season. So that would give us 7 games. And then we would have a crossover game with somebody like Auburn that we want to keep that in every year from one of the other pods. And then from the other pod, we'd play another team. And you just rotate every year playing everybody from the other pod where you have four games. So that way you're going to play everybody pretty much in the conference, every 3 years. And I like that idea of 9 games, and I like the idea of playing everybody in one pod, just so you're playing so many teams in the league, and you're getting to play a very good schedule there. But that's what I hear that they're going to do. Now that might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. That's not. That's
too late. Write the story.
It's not something I know for sure. But as Frank Howard used to say, we have heard from a reliable source that this is what's going to happen. Don't quote me on this, but do we have heard that? So that's what I've heard.
What I like about that is that every 3-4 years, if a player stays at the university for that length of time, that they would play every team in the conference before the end of their tenure. I think that that's pretty cool.
Right, and I think that
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
some people have brought up that you play everybody in your pod, and then you play one team from each of the other pods, and then you play 2 other games. But by playing the whole group of people from one of those other 3 pods, then that really enhances your schedule. I mean, you got 7 games right there that you're going to have, and then you're going to play that Auburn game, and Tennessee's going to play Alabama, and all those games that we've had. Hopefully, you can keep that, but you also got to understand, as an athletic director, for our guy Josh Brooks, he's got to protect our strength of schedule, just from the standpoint that all of a sudden we're playing with Florida in our pod. That's going to be a strong game, and you don't want to all of a sudden say, okay, just to keep things going for our fans, let's put Auburn in our pod too. Hey, we don't need that. We need that game as a outside game, and then Kentucky and South Carolina would be probably, and then you'd probably have Alabama, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee, and then Oklahoma, Texas. They got to play Texas, Missouri, and Arkansas, and then you'd have the other one be Texas A&M, Mississippi, LSU, and Mississippi State.
I like it. So let me see if I got this straight, because I need baby words. So let's say Georgia's in Pod A. They play the 3 other teams in Pod A. Then they play all of the teams in Pod B. And say this year,
B, C, or D, yeah.
Yeah, and then they play one team in Pod C and one team in Pod D. That gives them 9 games. The following year, they play all the teams in Pod A, and then all of the teams in Pod C, and then 1 in B and 1 in D, and then all the teams in Pod D the 3rd year in. So
right. Basically, but with that permanent crossover, which in Georgia's case, I think would likely be Auburn.
Yeah. And you would easily.
No, that makes perfect sense. It seems very easy.
you would easily get that game with Auburn when you go to Pod C because you're playing everybody in that, but you would end up playing somebody else from the other two places, one or two, so it's going to be give and take for sure, but it's so much better than having a divisional type deal where you're just going to end up not like what we're doing, like we haven't been to A&M and all that other stuff. So, but it just enhances your schedule to know that you're going to have those big games to help you get into the playoffs. And everything that we've read about Kirby talking about scheduling, about Josh Lee working behind the scenes, getting these games, we've been looking for big intersectional games across the country to try to enhance our playoff hopes. Now, all of a sudden, you got a Texas game. We can play at Texas or Texas play here. You got an Oklahoma game. You've got Alabama maybe every 2 years, you know what I mean, as compared to not, like before. So it's going to be, it's going to be a Ben-Hur schedule now. That's the way I used to talk about it. Ben-Hur, it's going to be a long ass tough schedule now. It's going to be tough.
Well, one problem that it fixes is that, like this season, the home schedule at Sanford Stadium is not very desirable for fans. And that just wouldn't be the case going forward with any of that. But the follow-up question, Coach, is that if there are 4 pods, is there an SEC championship game?
Yes, for sure. You got to have one of those for money. You got to have
okay.
And you got to also have it to help your playoff situation. If you're going to continue to be a nationally ranked team, you got to have so you take not necessarily the best from each pod. You just take the 2 teams with the best record, and then they'll probably have some kind of tiebreaker situation to take care of that too. But this is not set in stone or anything.
Sure.
One thing that I will say in my behalf, and this is one of the few times I'm ever going to say it. That guy that said, time is on my side. Hey, listen, I got so much time over here at my house right now that I'm trying to decide what to do. And so I do some prep for this show. I used to never do anything except cut the computer on and wait for you guys to ask me stuff. But I've turned into a computer freak over here, which means that I probably look at it an hour a day. But I do check with some of these people around the country that I know, and they're pretty good about texting me back. And when the executive producer of CBS Sports that does the SEC network, when the guy at Fox that is the director of programming, and I'm dropping these names, but these guys answer me, and I hope our fans appreciate that. That's one of the things I hope we can continue to use, and certainly ESPN people like Herb Street and Felica and Reese Davis, these guys we have on our podcast, they help us too. So I hope you understand when I'm just telling you stuff like this, I'm not just bringing it out of the blue.
Well, no, that's why I asked, because I figure if anybody knew, you would. And
Roddy, the image I have in my head is that Coach has just cleared his dining room table. There's just a bunch of grids and graphs on there, and he's brought in the whiteboards that he used to, diagram plays on. And he's just got this team here, this grid over here, this pod. He's got it all worked out.
Yeah, and my kids are always checking on me and seeing how I'm doing and everything, and which is great. But I'm doing good, as good as can be expected. But at the same time, there's a lot you can do with all these different websites and stuff as far as reading up on things. And I never used to do that because I was tied up with other things. But
you're prepared today.
If somebody wants to call in and ask about one of these cooking shows or something like that, I can tell you, because I'm looking for things to do, man.
About guys' grocery games, because I could do a podcast with you about guys' grocery games.
Hey, I tell this all the time. I'm like an old maid. I'm available. I'm out there.
No, hey, I hear your phone ringing every time we get on the show. Greg Sankey calling you up, going, "Hey, how are we going to play these games?"
Greg Sankey is not in my wheelhouse. I can tell you that. He's I have no interchange with him. Feinbaum, those guys I do, but Greg Sankey, no.
Well, speaking of a good interchange, if you have a minute, I want everybody to swing by Athens Ford. We mentioned them earlier, sponsoring our watch along show. They also sponsor our website at UGASports.com. They also sponsor this podcast. We wouldn't do it without their help. So when you need help, swing by our friends at Athens Ford, hit them up. They have a ton of vehicles on the lot. I know it's been tough for people to find vehicles, but they have them. They have some great deals out there. They have the Ford Broncos. You can go check out. The people have been ordering them. The people that did the special order last year, they're arriving. They're not staying very long, but you can go check out those Ford Broncos. And if you're a student, you're going to get a $500 discount. Even if you're recently graduated, if you're active or a vet, active military or veteran, you'll get a $500 discount. They have tons of stuff like that. So they really take care of the people that take care of us. And of course, everything you get out there has a lifetime powertrain warranty, so long as any of their new vehicles certified pre-owned, or most of their pre-owned vehicles. So hit up our friends at Athens Ford, do the service out there. And again, we were talking last week about the charity stuff they were doing, helping people who had aged out of the foster care system move on to college and move on into the workforce and get out on their own. And they were putting together these packages for them. So just a great group of people. We really appreciate Brian Clower and the folks out there, and just personally appreciate them sponsoring our show. It means a lot to us. Also want to mention our friends, if you're in that area and you're looking for lunch, you're on the west side of Athens, swing by Academia Brewing Company. In 2 weeks, people are going to be watching that Georgia Clemson game. There's not a better place to watch it than Academia Brewing Company. They have the giant TV screens. They have the lounge with all the couches. They have all their fantastic beer. They have the chef, they have fantastic food, huge place to watch the show. And people always say, well, what beer do you get when you go out there? And most of the time I go out there and I get a flight. They have these, the staves that you use to make a barrel. And so the curved staves, they have holes drilled in them, and they can drop in 4 different small glasses into it. And you can get 4 different beers. So get a flight and you can try 4 different ones. And if you find one you really like, you can usually take it home with you. So when you get a chance, swing by our friends at Academia Beer Company, get a flight, get that great triple sandwich, get their flatbreads, get in, all their great, the Brussels sprouts I was mentioning last week, that only Brussels sprouts I'll eat in this world. They have them there, and I crave them at times. So hit up our friends at Academia Brewing Company and Athens Ford when you're on the west side of Athens.
Roddy, I do want to do a quick little PSA just for us and our channel here, because when I first started with UGA Sports, we had UGA Sports Live, and it's remains the flagship of what we do. But if you look on this podcast feed or this YouTube channel, what you're going to see now, it was one show then. Now we have Georgia Recruiting Rumor of Fact, headed up by Blaine Gilmer. We've got the call-in show on Sundays with Paul Meharry. We've got on Thursdays, coming back during the season, beginning this Thursday, you'll have Jim Donnan, Brent Rollins, and myself around the league here on the podcast feed and UGA Sports. And then we're going to have the watch along show as well. So damn near every day we've got something popping on these feeds. We had Dabo Swinney on here. We've had Paul Feinbaum. We've had Mac Brown. We've had Bruce Feldman. It goes on and on and on and
Jeff
on.
Foxworthy.
We had Jeff Foxworthy. I'm just really proud of some of the content that we've produced. And I'm not just saying that because I've been part of it, but saying that because our audiences our audiences have supported it. And, I had the idea a couple weeks ago. I just want to get in touch with Brooke Whitmire because he's been the PA voice at Sanford Stadium my whole life. And I want to learn more about him. And it was a really great interview. I was thrilled to get to know him a little bit better. And we got some great feedback. So all to say, check out the stuff we have on here. It's like a buffet at this point. Just walk up and get what you want. If it's for you, great. If it's not, pass it along. The more that you support what we're doing, the more we can do this kind of output.
Yes, Dane, you are great.
Yes, and while I'm bragging on myself, I got an unsolicited text from Coach Donnan earlier today, and this was to me and Brent, and he said, "Hey, that film Don't Lie piece on special teams, good job on that. I like what you did." So, Coach, I want to ask you about Georgia's special teams a little bit, because I know it's right next to your heart, all those kicking plays that happen on special teams.
Yes.
Yeah, I was, I was reading about it because I always like the fact that you back up your data with pertinent facts and stats. And, just the fact that our guys are so saying around the country as far as where they rank, Podleski and Camarda, just really up there. Both of them got a chance to be in line for the award, the Lou Groza Award for kicker, and the punter is the Ray Guy Award. I think both of them got a chance to be right there. And I don't know many teams in the country have two guys like that, punter and place kicker. And then, Karras and Kenny Mack have both got good stats, returning kicks. And the one thing that I thought was really good was you pointed out how many snaps actually guys like Channing Tindall and Zamir White, these guys are contributing, even though they're really heavily contributing on offense and defense. It's kind of a mantra for Coach Smart that everybody's involved. I mean, coaches, players, you're all, if you're going to be on the team, you need to be on the special teams too. So you got Zamir White blocking a kick against Arkansas. I mean, here's one of the best backs in the country lined up on the punt block team, or he's also in the wall when they're running back kicks. And last year you had your two gunners, Campbell and Stokes, both drafted in the first round, playing outside covering kicks. So I think that really resonates with our team, and y'all did a great job with that. I mean, I wouldn't send you. I think one of the things Attila the Hun said thousands of years ago is false praise is one of the worst things you can ever tell one of your Huns. The same thing's true with other people in today's society. If somebody's not doing the job or doing what you want, don't give them, oh boy, that's a pretty good job. Hey, tell them what they're doing wrong and help them out. But if they're doing something good, everybody likes a pat on the back. I know when I used to put my arm around a player or go up to one of my grandkids or something and tell them they did a good job, I mean, they just burst open with it. I mean, you got to do that. Give them some pride. Give them some love.
Well, specifically, I wanted to ask you about punt returning, because one point that Brent made in the piece that I had not really considered, it seems like we're not seeing as many explosive punt returns back for touchdowns as we once did. He said it's probably because of more angular and kind of rugby style punting, and that makes it tougher to do. It also makes it even more impressive that Akeiris Jackson rarely makes the mistake. He catches the ball when he should. He gets 5 or 6 yards when he can. He doesn't have negative plays. So how has the return process changed maybe in recent years?
Well, one of the things that really just gets on every coach's little buzz on their nerve frame is the fact these rugby style kicks, you just don't know where the ball's going. And you've got, if you just put yourself in the place of a punt return blocker who has, held up his guy and has turned his back to go back and get in the wall or set the wall or kick a guy out, usually you're counting on the ball being in the air, so many seconds. But these low kicks, I mean, you got to be careful that the ball doesn't hit you in the back or, rolls into you. So that's another thing that you got to be involved with in setting up your kick returns is this guy is, so the safety value of punt returns is a lot more preeminent maybe than the return value, just because you don't want to give the ball to the other team by an inadvertent hit on one of your players. So you got to factor that into your punt return. So the number one thing to do when somebody punts to you is get the ball. I mean, you want to acquire the ball. So that means either by a fair catch or the ball going out of bounds or rolling dead or whatever it might be. And then anything you can get gravy wise on return, as I've said so many times on this podcast, a 10-yard return is worth 1 first down. And most teams get anywhere from 15 to 20 first downs a game. And if you can get 3 in a kicking game, that's going to enhance it. It's easier to return a kickoff for sure because, it's just, they got to cover longer distance and the ball, the difference from where the people are covering. But that really tells you. And the other thing that these kicking camps are a lot like 7-on-7 and teaching the quarterback and all that. You've got these gurus that are teaching these guys how to angular kick and, what we call directional kick. So let's just say, hey, we want to kick the ball to a certain point on the field. And if we can net 40 yards on it, we'll take it because this guy's a tom kick returner. We don't want to give him a chance. You got a guy back there like Nicole Hardman, somebody like that. You just got to make sure that you put the ball and hey, if we can net 40 yards, that's great. So the rugby kick, worrying about where it's going to, who's going to be able to handle it. Not only you can't fair catch them usually, but they're so you never know how the ball's bouncing on it. I mean, the football's oblong for some reason. You see a lot of bad bounces out there, and then turning your back on it, and then the directional kick. So that's a long answer, but I'm going to stick with it.
Now I'm wondering if a punter is ever going to be kind of trained to, hey, just kick it into that person's back and then we'll recover it from there.
Yeah, I mean, you could go on the run and kick it into a guy's back. You'd probably be worth a scholarship. I mean, do that. I know, boy, when my coach I was a punter, and I worried a lot more about punting than I did playing quarterback. I can tell you, because my coach was on me. Really, I never let it bother me to the point where I couldn't execute. But, I can just see him now just getting his lips like, if you can pin them back. I don't know if you can, but see if you can. Pin them back. Pin them back. And, one time he asked me, he said, did you kick that with your foot?
No.
It was low. It was really low. Yeah. That was the kind of smart stuff. Did you kick that with your foot?
Did you never use that line to a player of yours, right? Yeah.
See, Dana, I had the exact same question.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, my longest punt in college got me in trouble. I kicked one 68 yards against South Carolina, and Bobby Bryant ran it back 99.
Oh, that's disheartening.
Yeah, that was terrible. I mean, that was a dumb move by him. You don't ever pick a ball up inside the one. I mean, our team slowed down and he took it back all the way. I actually saw him a couple years ago at the South Carolina Hall of Fame when they were honoring Coach Steve Greer. We all went over there and Bobby Bryant was getting in, and I went up to him and he said, hey, you remember that 99-yard return? I said, yeah, I still remember it, man.
Y'all still talking crap years later. I love it.
Roddy, those socks behind you would probably look pretty good on some of these punters, right?
Well, if they get the right ones, if they go with the stripes,
that's for the rugby. That's for the rugby kicker right there.
Rugby kicker. Now the one we heard about, the one that was 70 yards in practice, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, highlight of the practice, something." That's probably because they had the silver ones, But
anyway, and who makes these socks, Roddy?
These are made by Dead Soxy, DEADSOXY. Dead Soxy. They come really well packaged. They are our newest sponsor of the podcast, and they're also going to be the people. We always do a predict the score contest, and when I put it up on the thing, we've always given people a choice of a longer membership to UGASports or a small gift card. We're going to put out one of their best prize packages each week. So when people predict the score, they'll be able to get one of the Dead Soxy prize packages. And these are the Georgia colors that they've done, the red and blacks, and they use that crazy yarn made from bamboo that's super soft. I'm wearing I won't show you mine, but you couldn't see them if you did, because I'm wearing the no-shows. So I wear the hell out of their no-show socks. When I do all my walkings, I just pound in them, 2 walks a day, 3.5 miles. And the socks hold up. So super soft, super comfortable, great sponsor. 2 Ole Miss grads. It was all developed in Dallas, but it's 2 Ole Miss guys came up with these luxury socks. And, you can't imagine giving somebody socks as a gift. It sounds stupid. Hey, here are your socks. They're in a bag. These things come in the great box that has all the wrapping in it, and they come in these Velcro envelopes. The presentation's fantastic. So if you have a Georgia fan in your life, and you want to get them 25% off, just go to UGASports.com or go to deadsoxy.com and use promo code UGASports. and that'll get you 25% off. And you can get somebody the 4-pack that has all 4 of the Georgia colors in it, or you can get the red dress socks or the black dress socks, the red no shows or the black no shows, or tons of other stuff. We put this out last week, and in the first day we had 31 orders go through. People are already getting them, and they're telling me, "Hey, you were right. These are great." So again, we tried them out first because a lot of people say, "Hey, we want to advertise on your show." And we're like, "What do you got?" And like on your guys' show this coming Thursday, we have Lane's Barbecue out of Bethlehem. We know Lane's. We've used their stuff. We have Connor Grading and Landscaping. We have actual testimonials of people that have used them. So we don't take anybody's we don't just take anybody's money because they want to be a sponsor of our show. We take people we believe in, and these 2 Ole Miss grads, they know what the hell they're doing. They make great socks. And they make them for LSU fans, Georgia fans, Alabama fans, stuff like that. So big shout out to them. And of course, I'm speaking of free clothes, I'm wearing my Your Pie t-shirt. So if you need it's Tuesday, do not miss out on the Your Pie double points. All right.
This is a question from the YouTube chat while we're talking about coaches' playing days. And I don't know that I've heard this story, so I'm glad that this is from Ray on YouTube. He says, "Hey, Coach Donnan, tell us the inside skinny of how you, as the quarterback of NC State, beat Georgia 14-7 in the 1967 Liberty Bowl. How'd you do it?"
It was very fortunate because they were very talented, particularly on defense. Jake Scott, Bill Stanfield, all those guys. We just tried to, do a good job of keeping the ball away from them and hit some underneath routes, and 33 ride, 2 drag cross, and 37 ride, 2 drag out, and things like that. I still remember that split right over, fake dive, bootleg pass at 1, fullback flat. Those are things that
how do you remember all that?
You don't run those much anymore, but we had that one play that our coach would said the only way we could run it is if I could call it without screwing it up. So I had to practice like forever to learn how to do it. You just remember things like that. But we were fortunate to win. There's no question about it. They were very good. We were good too. I mean, we had a lot of good players. Dennis Bird in the College Football Hall of Fame, defensive lineman, just a terror. We were able to stop them on the goal line they had like 6 or 7 plays there in the 4th quarter. And Kirby Moore, great quarterback for, now is a big lawyer down there in Macon. Kent Lawrence, all these guys, we were, I got to know them once I got to be the coach, and kind of one-upped them a little bit when we talked, but man, they had a heck of a team. Fortunate to win, but we got the W.
Yeah, I was wondering, it's like when you became head coach, if those guys reached out to you or you reached out to them, or any kind of relationship that was built from that.
Yeah, they did. They were great. I mean, they were some of my best supporters and helped me recruit and all that. And you had an in because you had played against them, and it's always we had Letterman's picnic or Letterman's deal the other day that Coach Cavan and David Dukes and Mac Guest had a lot to do with organizing it, and some of your old players were there, and it's nothing like walking up to a guy, whether he's a player or a manager or a trainer, and he's, "Hey, coach, you're their coach." That was a big day for me on Saturday. Get a chance to see though, and a lot of Wally Butts players and Coach Dooley. And Coach Dooley was there. He looks great. Everybody walking up to him. And the one thing you got here at Georgia that I really feel like that a lot of schools don't have is, and Kirby's really enriching that, is bring the old players back, get them back here, let the players that are here see the success that you've had off the field after being a Georgia grad. And it's just a real good fraternity. And these guys really, have a good time. They had a golf tournament on Friday, and it was an awesome day for those guys to be around there and be around the program. And the one thing that's overwhelming to me that I just got to say this today about Georgia, and people talk to me about being a shield or some kind of SHILL for Kirby or something. I'm not. But let me just tell you this: in 5 years, he's built a 37 with the help of Jerry Moorhead and Josh Brooks and everybody else and all these McGill people, a $37 million indoor building, a $63 million area down there for the athletes and for the fans in the West End zone. And now over a $50 million, it's going to be, I don't even know how many million, new building. And it's all been paid for with donations. These people believe in this program, man. I mean, that's unreal in 5 years. I mean, to do all that is just, and it's got the program where it needs to be. I think this year's going to be big for us, but really the proof's in the pudding, those facilities. I mean, every time I go in there, I see something different, whether it's a West End zone or this new building or the indoor building itself. But, you know, I remember when I was coaching, you know, and you guys you have the scout team and you got the cards and you got to get everybody lined up and, you know, hey, look at this. Hey, when we go to a scout team situation in the kicking game, they got it on a big board. It's drawn up exactly where you're supposed to be, who's on the team. Here's the diagram of the punt block. I mean, there's no way you could screw that up as far as messing up time. You know what I mean? You don't have to stop and, hey, you dumbass, get over here or something like that. Everybody knows where to be, and it's just so organized. I'm very impressed with it.
Well, you mentioned that West End zone, and real quick, Roddy, that West End zone is such a big deal for this campus in this state because most stadiums get used 6 times a year and they're inaccessible otherwise. The fact that anytime people can go stand on that bridge and look into that stadium and feel a piece of it, regardless if it's game day or not, man, that's a big deal.
It is. And I think about the other day when the first scrimmage they had, it started raining, you know, and they left the field and were back inside the indoor facility, I think Kirby said in 12 minutes. So they didn't have to re-stretch. They were able to continue. They went inside and started doing their situational work. There weren't a whole lot of offensive fireworks that the folks got to see, but apparently they do a lot of situational stuff inside the facility. And we didn't get a very good report on the inside because a lot of people who were telling us what was going on were actually in the stadium and they didn't get to go inside. But the fact that, I mean, I remember when the justification for not having the indoor facility was you only use it 5 or 6 times a year. I'm like, okay. But when you look at that indoor facility, you see the baseball teams in there working out, the track teams in there working out. And as coach said, there's this giant video board in there. And you can say, okay, hey guys, here's our punt block. And you line it up and everybody can look on the screen and then look at where they're at and see what's going on. I just think that's invaluable. Coach, I got a question from Mikhail, Mike, Mikhail. I'm assuming Mikhail, but if I said it wrong, I'm sorry. What are the pros and cons of having Jamari Sawyer play center? Would it be good to have him as your center in game 1 versus that front, or does he need to protect JT Daniels' blind side?
Well, you know, for our fans that don't keep up with it, our center has a broken hand right now, and he's working to snap the ball with his other hand, and we've got a very capable replacement in Van Pran, who's a true freshman. But you do have a guy in Jamari Sawyer who yesterday I saw was picked as a preseason second-team All-American along with Jordan Davis and Camarja was actually picked too. So 3 guys pretty good on the preseason All-American team. But I think the big thing there is where do you feel the most comfortable as far as what can you get the most results out of? Certainly everybody knows about the blind side. The left tackle is critical, but I would say that Matt Luke, Kirby Smart, Todd Monken, they're going to look at who can do the best job with the 5 best we can put out there. So is that taking away experience and putting in a freshman at center, or maybe by that time, you know, Erickson will be ready at center. But the reason they're looking at Sawyer is he is a veteran. He can make the calls. Anything he could do inside would have to be looked at, what you're giving up on the outside. But on the outside, though, we got some really good young talent there, and Truss, Jones, Mims, all these guys are very good. But so you're going to look at, of the 4, Van Pran at center, those 3 at tackle, which one you trust the most and put Sawyer at that position at the other position, I think.
And one important point that I don't think people discuss a whole lot when talking about Georgia's offensive line, because people are just playing musical chairs. Man, Clemson's defensive line is something special this year. Breezy, Murphy, it's going to be tough. And so it's a tough game for a true freshman, a redshirt freshman to get thrown in there, because this is pro level competition.
It really is, but at the same time, Jordan Davis, Carter, Walker, Nolan Smith, Anderson, and we're seeing the same kind of defensive front day in and day out, and they pound each other. I'm not talking about just 11 on 11. They're doing pass rush, they're doing run block, they're doing chase the ball. I mean, again, an inordinate amount of reps against good competition. So it's not going to be that they're going to be surprised against those guys, and they're certainly very good. But I think that's one thing that helps our team getting ready for a team like Clemson is they're probably not going to see, except maybe a couple receivers that Clemson have. I don't think they're going to see anything in the game that they hadn't seen in practice. Although we don't have a 6'4", 260-pound quarterback coming at us like DJ. I mean, we don't see that in practice, but it's definitely a concern of ours, their D-line. I promise you that to me, who can avoid the lost plays? And next week, I told you, I'm going to have a really good report on this game for you. But who can avoid the lost yardage plays is going to be huge in this game, because you get behind the sticks against either one of these defense. We had this little boy that lived in our neighborhood that couldn't say his R's, and his best friend's name was Aaron, and he used to say, "Elwin, you better say your prayers." And that would be these teams are going to have to say their prayers against each other if they get behind the sticks.
So that always reminds
me. I don't even know why I said that, but I just thought about. I mean, hey, that's
no, you're right. I always think back to when we watched with the watch-alongs together. I'm always looking at it from like player personnel, who's in the game, who's not. You're only focused on how far. I mean, you know every drive and how far they got in each drive and how much the field changed and yardage and stuff like that. And I realize that coaches look at these games completely different than fans do, or even the media. You guys look at the number of possessions you got and what you did on each drive, how many first downs you got, how many times you changed it, and that, how many times were you in third and long, and how you got out of that.
Yeah, so we look at that, but I'm going to tell you what, we also, the night before the game, you're in a fetal position thinking about how we're going to block Breezy. I mean, you definitely worry about their personnel. I mean, that to me as a coach, like I spent a lot of sleepless nights before the Nebraska game worrying about blocking Broderick Thomas and Neil Smith and those guys, and just saying, and we're a team rushing the ball for 400 yards a game. And, you really what if yourself to death about, but the really good coaches get to the point where you don't let it bother you, because your preparation has gotten you to a point where you got a good plan to handle it, and you're going to help a guy out and all that. But the great players demand a lot of attention. We spent the whole spring practice and all of summer camp, and it still didn't work on how to block Brown from Miami when we were at Oklahoma. I mean, complete wrecker. When we used to have to play Randy White when we were at North Carolina, and when he was at Maryland, I mean, it really wasn't fair what that guy was able to do as a defensive lineman. I mean, he was, just incredible the way he destroyed you. I mean, Randy White, they called him the Manster, half man, half monster. I mean, he
love it. Hey, Dane, I got a good question for you, because you're talking about the defensive front, and you did a great piece on the needing quarterbacks, the top five, or who has a better quarterback in these top five matchups. So maybe you go there. But Rob says, if Georgia and Clemson could exchange starters at one position, what position should it be? So I'm assuming he means that if Georgia wanted to exchange left tackles with Clemson or X receivers or kickers or punters or whatever, which one on Clemson would Georgia want to exchange?
I think there's only two potential answers here. And Coach, you may disagree with me. Because of receiver health and a guy like Justin Ross, if he's right, that's probably the answer, because, man, that guy's a game breaker. Overall, in terms of just talent, I mean, if this was 2 years from now, I'd probably say Uiagalelei, no doubt, 100%, throw him in there. I'm just bragging because I know how to say his name. But it's either receiver or quarterback. That's the two potential answers.
Yeah, I mean, without Pickens, even though Burton and those guys are coming along, I mean, you got a guy over there, Ross, that in the national championship game. I mean, come on. And we don't know how well he is. I mean, he's coming off a year being, out of the pocket. But it's certainly a hypothetical question for sure. But fortunately, we don't have to switch them. And I would say this: I wouldn't trade our 85 for their 85. I mean, if we had to go and take a bus and drive our team in there or drive Clemson's in there, I'd like driving ours in there.
That depth is a big deal. Here's a good note here from the YouTube chat that I think you'll like, Coach. This is from a longtime fan of the show, Chuck Ward. Says, hey, Roddy, Coach did a cameo for a friend of mine's birthday this week, and it made his day. Highly recommend it. Nice. So if you want a personalized message from Coach Donnan for the Georgia fan in your life, or if they have ties to Marshall, or if they just want to hear from a College Football Hall of Famer, it's on Cameo. Go check out Jim Donnan on Cameo. And Coach, I've seen your a couple of the videos you do. You don't mail it in. You give them the coach energy there.
There's another thing. I got so much time. I'm doing these cameos now. I don't know. I mean, I'm always glad to do them, but I'm more than the fact that I've got one. It's just it gives me something to do. So I put some time on it and hope they like it. And it's personalized, but it's good thing for me to help my grandchildren out a little bit. Maybe they need some help once in a while. So. But I'm certainly not in it to see if I can set myself on fire for $1. But
that's my job, Coach. We know that.
But I do feel good about they're going to have a special on Cameo here in the next 3 days. I think they're going to have a cut rate, to try to get everybody going. So if anybody wants to do it, but for sure, I'm not hawking that. But Chuck, as we mentioned so many times out there in Texas, is a loyal fan. I got to know him a little bit through Facebook and things like that's another thing I do. I would have never been on Facebook, but I mean, every day I cut it on just to see what's going on. I got Instagram. I mean, come on, I'm doing all this stuff.
We're gonna hire a coach to be our social media manager. That'll be awesome.
I'm not into that. I'm not into that, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because I got all this time. But no. I'm just telling you. There's a lot out there you can do, and you got to go on, you got to go on with your life. That's part of being that's part of what happens. I know my wife would want me to.
Yes, she would. All right. There's another question, but I lost it.
Brad Bush is asking for score predictions. Come back next week for that because we'll have it from our staff. And then, Coach, whatever you're building up to next week to give us the real story on this game, man, you got me jacked up for it. I'm going to run through a brick wall for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get out on a limb and tell you what's going to happen. Not really. I'm just going to have a good little synopsis of where I think we are, where Clemson is, and it really is a monumental game. I mean, how many times do you just don't see top 5 teams playing the first game of the year? I mean, a few years ago we had Miami and Alabama, but Miami really wasn't a top team at that point. They were based it on the year before. But I think based on the guys coming back and the kind of teams each team's going to have, I don't think many teams can say they got more than what Clemson and Georgia has projecting on the season. I mean, just Ohio State and Alabama and Ohio and Oklahoma certainly have a reason to be very, looking forward to the year. And just unbelievable to me at this point, the way Oklahoma is recruiting for 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and that's another thing about the rival site that we have. Just the way you can keep up with everything with Blaine Gilmer and Jed May and Trent Smallwood. All these guys work at it, and they know a lot about these guys. And really, I've never really had read much about it till again I get this time, so I read about it. But they do a good job of telling you what these kids are thinking about. And the one thing that I would say about coaches, signing and all, they're really good players right now. Probably going to hold off to the signing date. I mean, I know Travis Shaw committed the other day, and that was huge for North Carolina getting that D lineman. But for most of them, are going to probably take some trips here and during the season, go to the game atmosphere and try to, because a lot of them never been around the game. They missed the whole last year.
Coach, we have this is a question I lost earlier a second ago. It's from Mark MC, Mark something, I'm not sure. Mark says, Coach, what is Georgia going to do when it comes to doling out Scott Cochran's responsibilities in the special teams room? Is Will Muschamp taking over or what?
I can't say specifically that that's happened because I haven't been over there to watch, but I do know that that Kirby Smart has his hand in into special teams as much as any head coach. He really is. He was when he was a defensive coordinator. He realizes the value of it, and as we talked earlier in the show, convinces the players to buy in. And by getting those kind of reps, they get some experience and get maybe some quicker time at playing a position. But I would say that you got Todd Hartley, who is a special teams coach here and at Miami, has a vast background of handling things, would be delegated some of it. Coach McGee has always worked with the kick returners as far as catching the ball and, running the right route as far as where to go on the return. Cortez Hankton's been big on our punt team. Coach Luke's always been big on the protection. So all of these guys have been utilized in the past. And I think there'll be a situation with Muschamp, who has been a head coach, that's probably kind of helping with all of it, working around it. And we do have these analysts that do a good job of breaking down the tape and giving you all the plans and stuff like that. So that's the way it'll probably be dished out.
That's good. I appreciate the answer there because I didn't know.
Guys, this time next week, game week. I'm excited.
Yeah, we should have we'll have a good show for you. Folks, go ahead and send in your questions. Hit the subscribe button there. You can drop them into the comment section. We'll get to them next week if we didn't get to them this week. Our apologies there, but sometimes we just we don't have enough time in the day. And of course, tune in for our other shows and be here next Tuesday at noon for game week as we head into the Georgia Clemson top 5 matchup. We will have we'll answer all your questions and hopefully have some good information for you then. On behalf of, go ahead.
I want to say this one thing. A couple of my buddies that coach, around the country are opening up this week. Certain games are being played. Some of them are 1AA, some of them are 1A. I sent something to 3 of them. Okay, how you look and everything. Every one of them said similar to this right here. I think we'll be okay. We just got to stay healthy. That's such a. I started to say, "Oh, really? I appreciate you really telling me how it is."
The new coach speaking their text.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, I shouldn't. I mean, that's unreal.
That's good stuff. And hey,
fantastic.
That's what when people ask me, how's Georgia looking? I'm like, well, they're healthy. Yeah, well, you said last week if Georgia could just get healthy with its wide receivers, this would be
that was one great thing about the scrimmage Saturday, based on what Kirby said afterward, that we didn't get any new injuries. So hey, we've had our share of those. So you just hold your breath that last scrimmage, but you got to have it. I mean, he was talking to the Letterman, and I was in there listening to him, and he did a great job. And he said, one of the things I really believe in is you got to have 2 scrimmages to evaluate your team, and we're going to have a very physical one today and get after it. And And you're looking at, hey, well, maybe we've had these guys hurt and we got to hold back. But what about your team? How are you going to get ready if you don't do it? So we got through it. So that was good.
Yep. All right, folks, on behalf of Athens Forward, Your Pie Academy, and Dead Soxy, we appreciate you tuning in. For Coach Donnan and Dane Young, I'm Roddy DeBulsey, and we hope to see you next week.